Okay, now I'd like to hand over and give a warm welcome to Superintendent Tom Holmes from Devon and Cornwall Police, who's kindly agreed to give us an update on some of the work that they've been doing over the last year or so, which has very much been through Tom and through Jules Fry, a member of CIfA as well, who has done a lot of work across the range of heritage assets and worked very closely with colleagues in Historic England, with local authorities and local groups, and with the CIfA SIG, and has been really helpful taking things forward. And you'll have hopefully seen Jules's article in The Archaeologist. If you haven't, I'd suggest you read it to get a police officer's kind of view of where we're going. So without anything else, Tom, over to you, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks very much, Paul. Can you hear me, first of all the way from Ilfracombe? Yes, you can?
We can indeed, thank you.
So apologies for my inspiring background, but my office has been moved to a broom cupboard. Nice to see you all. Just so you know who you're talking to, so I'm Tom Holmes. I'm the Strategic Lead for Heritage and Cultural Crime in Devon and Cornwall. In a previous life, I studied archaeology and ancient history at Exeter, hence my interest in this, and worked as an archaeologist briefly after graduation. So it's an absolute delight to be back in this area of business. As Paul said, I work closely with Jules. So our setup in Devon and Cornwall is that we have myself as a strategic lead, and Jules within the rural crime team works on heritage crime, and that's pretty much it. But we do our best on the theme. Now, Paula, did you get the slides? Are they?
I did. I can advance them as you need them.
Yeah, brilliant. If we could have the first one, then. I am conscious I'm preaching to the converted here, and a lot of what I'm about to say you probably already know and could probably tell me more than I can tell you, but I'll go through and hopefully it's of interest to you. So listening to your priorities as you were introducing, Paul, I think I can probably talk to three of them. The bit about the register and the board of directors, probably not so easy to talk to, but I can certainly, one of the things I wanted to talk about was raising awareness, and we'll come on to that shortly. So that's the context. You can see the amount of designated heritage assets in England, which you already know, but actually it's 401,279, I'm informed today. It's gone up. 35,000 roughly of those in Devon and Cornwall, so that's nearly 10% of the national total. We've got 3,362 scheduled monuments in our force area, again 17% of the total for England, and that's not including sites and structures known but not designated or yet discovered. 57 protected wreck sites off the English coastline, 21 of which in Devon and Cornwall, and the Isles of Scilly, mustn't forget them, waters, which is over 30%, and that will become relevant as I go through. So next slide, please, Paul. Okay, so awareness. I think that was clear in your introduction, Paul, and it's clearly one of the reasons that this group exists, is raising awareness of heritage crime as a concept, as a thing, if you like, and how we try and prevent it. Actually, I've got a bit of a battle internally to try and sort that out. It's, you know, policing runs across this huge spectrum of crime and offending, but also protecting the vulnerable, and heritage crime is a very small part of that. But as Jules has shown in this slide, actually we use heritage assets as part of our branding, most of our branding. So you've got Smeaton's Tower there on Plymouth Hoe, Dartmouth Castle, which was the first castle built just for artillery use. So we are aware of it. Our executive are aware of them and use the assets in our branding We just need to make sure that we're protecting it. So our challenge is then knowledge, our staff knowing about heritage crime, understanding it. Externally, the community, it's certainly one of our challenges. Do landowners know what heritage crime is? Do they know what assets they've got on their property? That's a real challenge for us, and I know for Jules and his rural policing team. Do they care is the other issue. Do the landowners actually care about what's on their land? And again, that's a significant challenge. Reporting and categorization. So for us in policing, it's definitely a challenge. How do we get the reports? How do we categorize the reports when we've got this blizzard of crime information coming at us? How do we know what is a heritage crime? How do we allocate it? It's very difficult. Our crime recording systems aren't that dexterous. We do struggle categorizing heritage crime, but we are getting better. It's something that we are continually looking at. If you could go to the next slide, please, Paul, and that will show you. So these are our hotspots of all heritage crime just across the 2 counties and the islands over the preceding 2 years. Obviously the hotspots glowing red around our town centres, Exeter, Camborne around the mining heritage, Plymouth around its heritage centre there, Barnstable, Castle and High Street set up there, and Bideford glowing red. But we need to try and understand our problem. So in terms of getting our public to understand, our terminology isn't helpful. Sometimes we go out and we talk about night hawking. Who knows what night hawking is? The general public certainly don't know what night hawking is. You know, if they see people with metal detectors on land, sometimes they'll report it, sometimes they don't. We have had an increase in that, definitely, in our reporting. But again, it's the categorization of it once we know. Understanding our data is absolutely key, and particularly the data that we get from our partner agencies. So we have a number of partner agencies that do feed us data. We struggle with some, and others we don't. Others are very good. It tends to be the local authorities that are better at feeding us data around damage to and ASB in heritage assets. Some of the more troublesome ones to get data from we are working on, but it is part of the challenge. So what are we, so if, could you just go to the next slide, please, Paul? So I don't really need to show you this, but Devon and Cornwall and the islands have a huge range of sites and scheduled monuments, heritage assets that we are trying to protect and understand. Bury Pomeroy Castle, centre left there, it's recently been hit twice by night hawking. We did a piece on ITV West Country that picked up a lot of traction on that, highlighting that with English Heritage. Win Scott came on the television with me talking about that. So down to the next one, please. A particular issue that we have is our UNESCO World Heritage Site with the tin and copper mining, as well as other metals. West Devon and Cornwall are littered with mine shafts, often that open up in the back gardens of people that aren't expecting it. And we have a particular problem with ASB youths motocross, using motorbikes, damaging the old spoil heaps and the stone workings. So that's one of them. And the next slide, please. These are threats you're used to. So arson, we have one particularly unpleasant arson of Menscriffa down in West Cornwall, which is a Bronze Age standing stone with Latin inscription on it. The properties used to commit the arson on top of that will damage that, you know, almost forever, almost unrecognisably for the future. And the next slide, please. Yeah, and night hawking, there you go, there's a hill fort in Penzance that completely stripped overnight. It was witnessed, areas overlooked, but member of the public doesn't understand what's going on, doesn't report it at the time, and we hear about it from the landowner afterwards, which is part of the frustration, if you like, and the challenge that we have to overcome. So what are we doing about all of these things, raising awareness and trying to prevent and bringing together partners? So next slide, please. So some of the innovations that Julian particularly has been involved in is the signing of scheduled monuments. So obviously we have to be extremely careful where we put those. We can't put posts into the ground anywhere, but it's been, the signage there has been developed with Historic England, really well received. Crime recording guides given out there, again developed with Historic England and other partners, and MSDS Marine, which we'll talk about a bit more in a minute. These signs have been used really successfully on a couple of hill forts and several of the scheduled monuments that Julian and his team have helped to protect. It's had really good feedback. It has seen a reduction in reporting as a result of the awareness raising that that has produced. So that is that's a real positive. Next slide, please. So part of what we wanted to do was to bring all the partners together in the region. So it's one of the challenges, which I probably didn't allude to, but I presume you all know, is the huge geography of Devon and Cornwall. It takes you about 3.5 hours to drive from one end to the other on a good day that isn't in the summer, that isn't during commuting time. It is vast. And trying to get all of our partners together across that vast geography to talk about this very niche subject is a challenge. So we've created a partnership. Well, and what you're seeing here is just a snapshot of Teams channel. I put it in for just to display what we're doing. So we've got over 30 partners, external partners on this Teams channel. We can use it to push out to them information. So here you go, Bury Pomeroy Castle, CCTV images of night hawking at night, asking landowners to be aware to push it out further to others and to ask for information. So that partnership meets, we're meeting 3 times a year currently. We've got over 30 partners, as I said. We've got the Diocese of Exeter, Historic England, clearly, Cornwall Council, Devon Portable Antiquities. We've got the museums, Heritage Trust, National Trust, all of our local authorities, MOD Police, Royal Navy, MSDS, Marine Archaeological Societies from Devon, the National Parks, Exeter, Exmoor, Dartmoor, etc. The list goes on. The point is, we have a wide breadth of expertise, specialism, landowners, all wanting this information. It's been massively well received. It is always the most well attended partnership that I chair, just because there is a real thirst for information, thirst for what we can share. So we share information, we share knowledge, and the partnership meetings bring up really unusual items. So the last one brought up an issue around disappearing telephone boxes. I'm not going to go into that any further, but we'll just leave it there for a minute. As listed buildings, they appear to be disappearing in places, and that's been raised and something that we are looking at now. Okay, so next slide, please, Paul. Heritage Watch, you've alluded to it, you all know what it is. We've got some very, we've got an umbrella Heritage Watch across both counties in the islands, and bespoke one on Bodmin Moor for the predominantly prehistoric landscape on Bodmin Moor that's exposed. with some really good interventions there by those involved. And we've just started off a small bespoke one for Oakhampton Castle using a new police volunteer who bizarrely I went to university with 30 years ago. But he's now living in Oakhampton and has been instrumental in starting up this Heritage Watch. And we've got a blueprint. This will be the blueprint for similar sites in the Force area. I haven't got a slide for this, but 8 CLOs. So along with Historic England, we've trained just recently another 12 HCLOs, so Heritage Crime Liaison Officers, badged up professionals who absolutely, they bring home the bacon, so to speak. They're worth their weight in gold. There's a slide later on about an arson at Polkesmole House, which is near Dawlish, where an HCLO was on duty in the control room, saw the log coming in, correctly categorised it, got the landowners, got everything in place that we needed, and arson investigators, and we have got 2 in custody, 2 charged with that offence. So they really are proving their worth. We've got 12 on top of the ones that we already had. So that's a growing area of business. It's really exciting to see that happen. Next slide, please, Paul, is on historic protected wrecks. So you'll be aware, a lot of you, around the amount of wreck sites that we have. And as I mentioned, we've got 21 in our area. Julian, as well as others, is deeply involved with attempting to get the protective marking on those wreck sites to increase their security. We've brought on board Ryan Howells, Regional Forensic Coordinator, who's really keen to support this work and provide some in-house forensic link, which is great. We've got our maritime team, so we've got a maritime policing team around our coast, and they are now proactively diving on the protected wrecks under license to, more than anything, show that we are interested. So the diving community, as you'll be aware, is a very it's a small community, but one that does pay attention to what's going on in their world of expertise, and us proactively diving these sites to familiarise our dive team with them under license and assist with the marking process is bearing fruit, and the feedback on that from the diving community is really positive. So we're very pleased with that and the proactive work that we can do in that area. So that is ongoing. Obviously, that's supporting the excellent work under Birdie that is led by Historic England. Next slide, please. What else are we doing? We are marking all of our, so that is a snapshot of our incident and unit display on our map. So that's not live. I'm not giving you anything that you shouldn't see, but that's all of our incidents and units that are moving about in that area at the time. So that's the South Devon coast, and the little boats you can see are the protected wreck sites. So we've managed to get all of those mapped with what 3 words on our mapping system all around the coast, and we've got now agreement that we are going to get all our scheduled monuments likewise mapped on our mapping system, so that when an officer attends an incident, they'll know that they're going to a scheduled monument, or they'll know that they're going to close by a scheduled monument, and therefore they can correctly categorise, hopefully, what they're dealing with, which is really important, because half of the challenge is knowing what we're dealing with, the size of our problem in Devon and Cornwall, and this will be a bit of a game changer, we hope. The next bit on from this will be categorising or geofencing those sites on our system to be able to download every 3 months what crimes and incidents happen within 20 metres of the scheduled monument, so that we can then see exactly what the size of our problem is at 3 monthly chunks. So we should be in a position to be going with that later on this year, if not early next year. It's a big bit of work given the amount of sites that we've got, but it's a very exciting bit of work. The other thing that we're doing around mapping is We have the potential with our drone team using technology that we got from the G7 summit. You'll remember a couple of years ago, we had a lot of innovation in policing during that period of time. And we have discussed and are in the early stages of discussing mapping and 3D mapping our heritage sites. So if I take Oakhampton Castle, for instance, we would be able, with a drone, to 3D map the inside and the outside of the curtain walls and the stone assemblages that are left of Oakhampton Castle, and then compare that to see what's going. So I know other agencies will probably want some of that once we've got it up and running, but we're certainly looking to map and scan as many of our heritage assets as we can to protect them for the future. Next slide, please, Paul. Sorry, I'm rattling through this as quickly as I can, I promise. One job of note, so I've got a couple of jobs of note, but one of them is a job in Ilfracombe. So this is a bit of a quote from a judge. So this is 2 men that were charged with stealing 6 bronze plaques off a war memorial in Ilfracombe. The information happened to come in when an HCLO was on duty, who may be talking to you at the moment. And those were located fairly quickly by some very quick action. We charged the offenders with really bizarre legislation as a result of our input and Mark Harrison from Historic England. We charged him with dealing in tainted cultural artifacts, which is the second time that's been charged in English history. And the judge was damning in his summing up and sentencing the 2 for 14 months and 10 months, respectively, for that crime. So it does show that the system works, and using the legislation that's there does work. We just have to know about it. Next slide, please. I promise I'm going to be quiet in a minute. So this is just a slide to show you the impact. So that's the arson at Poltimore House that I talked about earlier. But look at the views. So on Twitter, 25,000 views over that. It shows, you don't need to be told this, but the impact of heritage crime, you know, the Sycamore Gap, the Cricket House, the arson in Bristol Dockyards, the impact on the community is massive, which is why this is such a passion of ours down here to try and protect it for the future. Last one, I suppose, maritime portfolio. I don't think I've got a slide on this, actually. No, so the last one, maritime portfolio. So it is early to talk about this, but we have got agreement from the ACC, Nolan, who runs the National Heritage Crime Coordination Group, that Devon and Cornwall will lead a national working group on the maritime portfolio and feed into that group. And one of our assistant chief constables, who's got the wider maritime portfolio for the country as opposed to maritime heritage crime, will be a strategic lead for that and link into that group to assist with Ops Birdie with Historic England, and Julian will be intimately involved in that. I've probably gone on too long, Paul, my apologies. I've tried to keep that as short as I can. I could go on forever, but obviously happy for any questions.